The transport shuttle descended through the purple atmosphere of Kepler-7, carrying 300 new cadets to the Galactic Defense Academy. Maya Brooks pressed her palm against the cold window and watched the massive structure come into view. The academy looked like a city floating in the clouds, with silver towers reaching toward the sky and training fields that stretched beyond what human eyes could see. She had dreamed of this moment for 5 years. Ever since the aliens made contact with Earth, ever since humanity learned they were not alone in the universe, Maya knew exactly what she wanted to do. She would join the academy. She would prove that humans belonged among the stars. The shuttle landed with a soft thud. Around her, cadets from a dozen different worlds began gathering their belongings. She heard the clicking language of the Crethians, saw the tall blue forms of the Vexal moving toward the exit, and noticed the small floating creatures called Quillith drifting above everyone's heads. Maya picked up her single bag and followed the crowd. She had made a decision 3 months ago, during the final selection process on Earth. She would not speak, not one word, not until she understood everything about this place and everyone in it. The other human cadets were easy to spot. There were 42 of them in this incoming class, the largest group of humans ever accepted. Maya recognized a few faces from the training center in Colorado. Jake Morrison, tall and athletic with an easy smile, was already making friends with an alien that looked like a walking tree. Sophie Lang, sharp-eyed and quick, was taking pictures of everything with her neural implant. They gathered in the grand hall, a space so vast that Maya could barely see the ceiling. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing information in hundreds of languages. A voice boomed through the chamber, translated automatically into each cadet's native tongue. "Welcome to the Galactic Defense Academy. You represent the finest candidates from your worlds. Most of you will fail. Those who remain will become protectors of the coalition." Maya listened carefully. The voice belonged to Headmaster Vexthor, a Crethian with 4 arms and skin like polished stone. He stood on a platform that slowly rotated so everyone could see him. "You will be tested beyond your limits. Physical strength, mental endurance, tactical thinking, and teamwork. Only the strongest survive here." The other humans looked nervous. Maya understood why. The academy had been designed for aliens, by aliens. Humans were the newest species to join the coalition. They were smaller, weaker, and softer than most of the other races. The dropout rate for humans was 78%. But Maya had no intention of dropping out. The cadets were divided into housing units. Maya found herself assigned to room 312 in the Eastern Tower. Her roommate was already there when she arrived. Amy Chen, another human, was unpacking her belongings with quick, efficient movements. "Hi, I'm Amy," she said with a friendly smile. "Looks like we're bunkmates for the next 3 years. Where are you from?" Maya looked at her, nodded once, and pointed to the name tag on her uniform. Maya Brooks. "Right. I can see your name," Amy laughed. "I meant like, what part of Earth? I'm from New York." Maya pulled out a small notepad from her pocket and wrote, "California. Nice to meet you." Amy's smile faltered slightly. "Oh, you prefer writing? That's cool. Some people find the translator implants uncomfortable at first." Maya nodded again and continued unpacking. She placed her few belongings in the locker, made her bed with military precision, and sat down at the small desk by the window. "So, are you feeling okay?" Amy asked, concern creeping into her voice. "The trip can be rough for some people, the gravity shifts and everything." Maya gave her a thumbs up and smiled. Then she returned to organizing her study materials. Amy watched her for a moment longer before shrugging. "All right then, I'm going to explore the campus. Want to come?" Maya shook her head and pointed to her books. Amy left, and Maya was alone. The first week was brutal. Physical training began before dawn and continued until sunset. The gravity in the training rooms could be adjusted, and the instructors seemed to delight in making it as difficult as possible. Maya struggled through exercises designed for creatures with twice her strength, but she never complained. She never spoke. The other cadets began to notice. "What's wrong with that human?" she heard a Vexel cadet whisper in the cafeteria. "Is she broken?" "Maybe humans communicate differently," another replied. "I heard they're very primitive." Jake Morrison tried to approach her during lunch on the third day. He sat down across from her with his tray and smiled. "Hey, I'm Jake. We were in the same selection group back on Earth. Remember?" Maya nodded and continued eating. "This place is insane, right? I mean, I thought basic training was hard, but this is something else." He laughed nervously. "How are you holding up?" She gave him a thumbs up. "You're not much of a talker, huh?" Jake said. "That's cool. Strong, silent type. I respect that." Maya appreciated that he didn't push. She wrote on her notepad, "Good to see a familiar face. Good luck with training." Jake read it and grinned. "You too. Hey, if you ever want to study together or practice drills, let me know. Us humans should stick together here." She nodded once more, and Jake left her to her meal. By the end of the first month, Maya's silence had become legendary. Instructors called on her during tactical discussions, and she would write her answers on a data pad. Her solutions were always brilliant, often better than those offered by cadets from races known for strategic thinking. Commander Lisa Hayes, the only human instructor at the academy, pulled Maya aside after class one afternoon. "Cadet Brooks, I need to ask, are you experiencing trauma, medical issues? The academy provides support services if you need them." Maya wrote, "I am fine, Commander. Thank you for your concern." "Then why won't you speak?" Hayes asked gently. Maya paused, then wrote, "I am listening." Hayes studied her face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "All right. Your performance is excellent. Just know that my door is open if you need anything." Maya's silence continued through the second month, then the third. Her combat scores ranked in the top 5%. Her tactical assessments impressed even the most critical instructors. And through it all, she never spoke a single word. She was learning about the Krethians and their honor-bound culture, about the Vexel and their cold logic, about the Quillith and their hive-minded thinking. She was absorbing everything, understanding everyone. And she was waiting for the right moment to finally speak. The 6-month mark arrived, and Maya Brooks still had not spoken a word. Half of the human cadets had already dropped out and returned to Earth. The physical demands were crushing, but worse was the psychological pressure. Being surrounded by aliens who saw humans as inferior wore down even the strongest minds. Amy Chen sat on her bunk one evening, watching Maya write in one of her many notebooks. "You know, the other humans talk about you," she said quietly. "Some think you're scared. Others think you're the smartest person here. Me? I think you're just incredibly patient." Maya looked up and offered a small smile. She wrote, "Patience is a human skill. We are good at waiting." "We used to be good at a lot of things," Amy said with a sigh. "Back on Earth, I was top of my class. Here, I barely passed the physical trials. Yesterday, a Krethian half my age lifted 3 times what I can manage. Makes you feel pretty worthless." Maya put down her pen and wrote quickly, "You survived 6 months. Most humans did not. That makes you exceptional." Amy smiled weakly. "Thanks. I just hope I make it through the year." That night, Maya lay awake thinking about what Amy had said. She remembered the day 15 years ago when the coalition ships appeared in Earth's sky. She had been just a child watching the news with her parents. The aliens had not come to conquer. They had come to invite humanity to join something bigger. But joining came with a price. Humans had to prove they were worth accepting. The galaxy was dangerous, filled with territorial disputes, resource wars, and ancient feuds. The coalition needed warriors, not weaklings, And to most alien species, humans looked very much like weaklings. Humans were physically smaller than Crethians. They could not breathe toxic atmospheres like the Vexol. They did not have the natural armor of the thornback species or the telepathic abilities of the Quillith. What humans did have was creativity, stubbornness, and an ability to adapt that puzzled the older races. The Academy had been testing humans for 5 years now, and the results worried the coalition leadership. 78% of human cadets dropped out. Those who remained often struggled with trauma. The alien instructors did not understand human psychology. They pushed humans the same way they pushed their own species, not realizing that humans broke differently. Commander Lisa Hayes understood this better than anyone. She had been the first human to graduate from the Academy 10 years ago, when humanity was still considered a curiosity rather than a real member of the coalition. She had suffered through training designed for creatures twice her size and strength. She had endured mockery and doubt, and she had sworn that when she became an instructor, she would help other humans survive what she had survived. But Maya Brooks confused her. The girl was clearly brilliant, yet she refused to communicate normally. Hayes had defended Maya in 3 separate staff meetings where other instructors wanted her expelled for lack of cooperation. Each time, Hayes pointed to Maya's perfect scores and asked what more they could want from a cadet. The breakthrough moment came during a zero-gravity combat exercise in the 4th Training Dome. 60 cadets were divided into teams and sent into a massive spherical chamber filled with floating obstacles. The objective was to capture control points while avoiding simulated weapons fire. Maya's team was doing well until disaster struck. An equipment malfunction caused 3 alien cadets to lose their magnetic boots simultaneously. They began spinning out of control, heading toward the outer wall at dangerous speeds. If they hit at that velocity, they would suffer serious injuries. The instructors began shutting down the exercise, but they were too slow. Maya saw what was happening and acted instantly. She pushed off from her platform and flew through the zero gravity like a missile. She grabbed a loose cable and used it as a rope, swinging herself toward the first cadet. She caught him, a young Vexel named Torn, and redirected his momentum toward a safety net. Then she used the rebound to push toward the second cadet, a Crethian female named Sekra. Maya wrapped her arms around the larger alien and fired her emergency thruster at just the right angle to slow their spin. They tumbled together into a foam barrier. The third cadet, a Quillith named Pix, was the hardest to reach. The small floating creature was too light to control its own momentum. Maya launched herself one more time, grabbed Pix gently in her hands, and used her own body as a cushion when they finally hit the wall together. The entire dome went silent. Maya pulled herself upright, checked that all 3 aliens were unharmed, gave a thumbs up to the instructors, and calmly returned to her team's position. She did not speak. She did not celebrate. She simply continued the exercise as if nothing unusual had happened. That evening, Jake Morrison found her in the library. He sat down next to her and whispered, "That was incredible today. You saved 3 lives without hesitation." Maya nodded and continued reading her tactical manual. "I need to tell you something," Jake said, glancing around to make sure they were alone. "I accidentally saw your notebooks last week. When I borrowed that reference book from your desk, Maya, you have thousands of pages of notes about every alien species here, their fighting styles, their cultural habits, their weaknesses." Maya's hand stopped turning the page. She looked at Jake with an expression he could not quite read. "Why?" he asked. "Why are you studying them so carefully?" She pulled out her notepad and wrote, "Know your enemy. Know your friend, know yourself. Then you will win every battle." "That's Sun Tzu," Jake said, recognizing the ancient quote. "But these aliens aren't our enemies. They're our allies." Maya wrote, "Are they? Or are we still being tested?" Jake stared at the words for a long moment. You think this is all still a test? That they're evaluating whether humans are worthy? Maya underlined the word still 3 times. The next day, a Krethian cadet named Voxtar confronted Maya in the training yard. He was twice her size, covered in thick armor-like skin, and clearly angry. You shame me with your silence, human. You think you are better than us? Too good to speak to inferior aliens? Maya stood calmly and shook her head. She wrote on her datapad and held it up. I respect you. My silence is not about you. Lies, Voxtar roared. I challenge you to combat. If you are too proud to speak, then let your actions speak for you. The instructors could not stop a formal challenge once issued. The rules were clear. Maya looked at the large Krethian, then looked at her datapad. She wrote, I accept. The duel was scheduled for the following evening. Amy tried to talk Maya out of it. He's going to hurt you badly. Krethians are trained warriors from childhood. This isn't fair. Maya simply smiled and continued her preparations. She spent the day reviewing everything she had learned about Krethian combat styles, their reliance on strength, their predictable honor codes, their inability to adapt quickly to changing tactics. When the duel began, Voxtar charged forward like an angry bull. Maya stepped aside at the last second. He swung his massive fists. She ducked and rolled. He tried to grab her. She slipped away like water. For 10 minutes, she did not throw a single strike. She just avoided him, studied him, learned his patterns. The crowd began to murmur. Voxtar was getting frustrated and tired. His movements became sloppy, and then Maya struck. A precise hit to his knee joint, a quick jab to his throat, a spinning kick to his back. Within seconds, the large Krethian was on the ground, gasping for air. Maya stood over him and offered her hand to help him up. He stared at her in shock, then took her hand. She pulled him to his feet and bowed respectfully. Voxtar bowed back. You fight with wisdom, not anger. I was wrong about you, human. Maya nodded once and walked away, still silent, still learning, still waiting for the right moment to finally speak. The final examination arrived at the end of the 3rd year. Maya Brooks had not spoken for 1,095 days. She had become a legend at the Academy, not just among humans, but among all species. The silent human who fought like a ghost and thought 10 steps ahead of everyone else. The examination was called the Crucible. Every graduating cadet had to survive it, or they would not receive their commission. The rules were simple but brutal. Teams of 5 would be dropped on a hostile planet with minimal equipment. They had 30 days to complete a series of objectives while surviving the environment, hostile simulations, and other teams who might see them as competition. Maya was assigned to Team 7. Her teammates were Ryan Cooper, another human who specialized in engineering; Zektal, a Krethian warrior with traditional honor codes; Vorn, a Vexel whose cold logic made him an excellent strategist; and Tessara, a Quillith who could scout ahead using her natural ability to float and sense electromagnetic fields. They met in the briefing room the day before deployment. Ryan tried to break the ice. So, we all know Maya doesn't talk, but she's brilliant. I've watched her training scores. If she gives us a plan, we follow it. Zektal crossed his 4 arms. How can we trust someone who will not speak? In battle, communication means survival. Maya pulled out her datapad and typed, I will communicate, just not with words. Watch and learn. Vorn studied her with his large dark eyes. Inefficient. Verbal communication is faster. Tessara floated between them, her small body glowing softly. Perhaps we should test her methods before judging them. Humans have survived on their world for millions of years. They must have some wisdom. The next morning, they were loaded into a dropship and sent to the planet below. It was a rocky world with thin atmosphere, extreme temperature shifts, and dangerous wildlife. The simulation added enemy patrols, equipment failures, and moral dilemmas designed to break even the strongest minds. They landed hard in a canyon at dawn. Zektal immediately wanted to take charge. "We should fortify this position and plan our assault on the first objective." Maya held up her hand and pointed to the canyon walls. She made a motion like water flowing down. Then she pointed to the dark clouds gathering overhead. Ryan understood first. "She's saying this canyon will flood if it rains. We need to move to higher ground." "How could she possibly know that?" Vorn demanded. Maya drew a quick sketch in the dirt showing erosion patterns on the canyon walls, the angle of loose rocks, and the drainage systems. She had observed everything in the 60 seconds since they landed. They moved to higher ground. 2 hours later, a massive storm hit, and the canyon became a raging river. They would have all drowned if they had stayed. Zektal looked at Maya with new respect. "You see what others miss." The first objective was to retrieve a beacon from an enemy outpost 3 kilometers away. Standard approach would be direct assault, but Maya had a different idea. She gathered her team and drew in the dirt. She showed them the outpost layout, marked the patrol routes she had memorized from the briefing, and then drew a series of arrows showing an infiltration path. But Zektal was frustrated. "This is coward's approach. We should fight with honor." Maya wrote on her datapad, "Honor does not feed families. Victory does. Would you rather die honorably or live to protect those who depend on you?" The Krethian warrior was silent for a long moment. His culture valued honor above all else, but Maya's words struck something deep. He nodded slowly. "You are wise, Silent One. We do this your way." They infiltrated the outpost, using Maya's plan. Not a single shot was fired. They retrieved the beacon and escaped before the enemy simulation even knew they were there. It was perfect execution. Over the next 3 weeks, the team bonded in ways none of them expected. Maya taught them to communicate without words. A hand signal meant danger. A whistle pattern meant regroup. A drawn symbol meant change of plans. They became so efficient that other teams could not predict their movements. Ryan learned to read Maya's expressions. A slight frown meant she disagreed with something. A raised eyebrow meant she had a better idea. A small smile meant she was impressed. Tessara discovered that Maya had been studying Quillith energy patterns and could actually sense when Tessara was nearby, even in complete darkness. The small alien was amazed. "How do you do this? Even other Quillith struggle with this skill." Maya wrote, "I pay attention. Your energy has a rhythm, like a heartbeat. Once I learned your rhythm, I could always find you." The other teams began to target Team 7. They had won too many objectives, survived too many impossible situations. On day 27, 3 other teams formed an alliance to eliminate them. Team 7 found themselves trapped in a valley with enemies on all sides, their ammunition nearly gone, and their final objective still incomplete. Zektal prepared for a last stand. "We fight with honor. We die with honor." Ryan checked his engineering equipment. "Maybe I can rig something explosive, buy us some time." Vorn calculated odds. "Our survival probability is less than 3%. Tessara dimmed her glow, a sign of fear among her people. "I am sorry we failed." Maya looked at each of them. Her team, her friends. She had spent 3 years silent, learning, observing, understanding. She knew these people better than they knew themselves. She knew Zektal's deep desire to protect others. She knew Ryan's creative problem-solving under pressure. She knew Vorn's hidden capacity for improvisation despite his logical nature. She knew Tessara's bravery that she hid behind caution. And she knew something else. She knew the one thing that could unite them for this final push. Something her species had carried through countless wars on ancient Earth. Something primal and powerful. Maya opened her mouth and began to hum. It was an old military cadence from Earth, simple and rhythmic. a song that soldiers had sung for centuries when facing impossible odds. The melody carried across the valley clear and haunting. Her team stared at her in shock. After 3 years of silence, she was making sound. Not words, but something equally powerful. Ryan recognized the tune immediately. It was an old army march. He had heard his grandfather sing it, and in that moment, he understood. This was not just a song. This was a signal, a message that said, "We stand together, we fight together, we survive together." He began humming along. Then Tessara picked up the rhythm, her body pulsing with light in time to the music. Vorn, who had no concept of human songs, found himself swaying to the beat. Even Zektal, the proud Krethian warrior, felt something stirring in his chest. Maya pointed to the cliff face behind them. She made quick gestures. Ryan understood and started working. They had 3% chance of survival with conventional tactics. But Maya was not conventional. She never had been. They executed her plan with perfect synchronization. Ryan's explosives created a distraction. Tessara scouted the enemy positions and fed information through light signals. Vorn calculated firing solutions using the minimal ammunition they had left. Zektal became an unstoppable force when defending his team's escape route, and Maya coordinated everything with hand signals and that simple humming tune that somehow kept them all connected, all focused, all believing they could win. When the simulation ended and the final objective was completed, Team 7 stood victorious. They had survived the impossible, and Maya Brooks, still humming softly, had finally made a sound after 3 years of perfect silence. The Academy instructors watching the simulation realized something profound. The silent human had just taught 5 different species to communicate beyond language. She had created unity from diversity, and she had done it without saying a single word. The graduation ceremony took place on a massive orbital platform above the Academy world. 10,000 cadets from hundreds of different planets filled the grand amphitheater. Families watched through quantum broadcasts from across the galaxy. The air hummed with excitement and pride. Maya Brooks stood among the human graduates. There were only 12 of them left from the original 42 who had started 3 years ago. Amy Chen stood beside her, wearing her dress uniform with obvious pride. Ryan Cooper was there too, along with Jake Morrison and Sophie Lang. They had all survived the crucible. They had all earned their place among the stars. Headmaster Vexthor stood at the center platform, his 4 arms spread wide in a gesture of welcome. Today we honor those who have conquered the impossible. These graduates represent the finest warriors, strategists, and leaders the galaxy has to offer. They will protect the coalition against any threat. The ceremony proceeded with traditional formality. Names were called. Cadets walked across the stage. Species Maya had never heard of received their commissions. She watched everything carefully, just as she had for 3 years. Then came the announcement that made the entire amphitheater fall silent. The valedictorian of this graduating class, the first human to ever achieve this honor, Cadet Maya Brooks. Amy grabbed Maya's arm in excitement. Ryan whistled. Even some of the alien graduates who had once mocked the silent human now applauded. Maya had earned her reputation through actions, not words. She walked to the stage slowly, feeling 10,000 eyes watching her. She had planned this moment for 3 years. Every day of silence had been leading to this. Every observation, every note, every careful study had been preparing her for what she was about to do. Vexthor handed her the ceremonial crystal that marked her as top graduate. He leaned close and whispered, "Will you speak today, Cadet Brooks? Or will you accept silently, as always?" Maya looked at him and smiled. Then she turned to face the massive crowd. She stepped up to the podium. The amphitheater became so quiet that the hum of the station's life support systems could be heard. She opened her mouth and spoke for the first time in 3 years. Her voice was clear and strong, carrying through the speakers to every corner of the platform and across the quantum broadcasts to a billion watching eyes. I needed to listen. The simple words hung in the air like thunder. Everyone leaned forward, desperate to hear more. Every species here speaks, but few truly hear. For 3 years I said nothing. I listened. I watched. I learned, and what I discovered is that humans have a gift passed down from our evolutionary path on a dangerous world. We observe, we adapt, we learn. She paused and looked across the sea of alien faces. Some looked confused. Others looked interested. Many looked uncomfortable. The galaxy talks about what makes humans dangerous, our aggression, our unpredictability, our emotions. They are wrong. She said the last 2 words with emphasis. Those things are not what makes us dangerous. What makes us dangerous is that we understand you better than you understand yourselves. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Vexthor's expression was unreadable. Maya continued. I studied every species in this academy. The Crethians value honor above survival, which means they can be manipulated through shame. The Vexall worship logic, which makes them predictable when emotions are introduced. The Quillith think as a collective, which means isolating them breaks their confidence. Every species has patterns. Every culture has weaknesses. Commander Lisa Hayes stood up in the instructor section, concern on her face. This was not a typical graduation speech. But I also learned your strengths, Maya said, her tone softening. Crethian loyalty is unbreakable once earned. Vexall logic solves problems humans cannot see. Quillith unity creates bonds stronger than any individual connection. Every species has gifts. The question is whether we can combine them. She took a deep breath. This was the moment, the real reason she had stayed silent for 3 years. You have been teaching us how to fight like you. But war is coming. The Devourers approach from the void beyond known space, and they do not think like any of us. The amphitheater erupted in shocked voices. Parents watching from home planets suddenly sat up in alarm. The instructors looked at each other with stunned expressions. The information about the Devourers was classified at the highest level. How could a cadet possibly know? Vexthor stepped forward. Cadet Brooks, that information is restricted. Maya turned to face him directly. Yes, it is. Your staff has known about the approaching threat for 8 months. You kept it classified because you wanted to see how cadets would perform under pressure without knowing the real stakes. This was not just training, Headmaster. This was your test of us. The truth hit the audience like a physical blow. The Academy leadership had been running an experiment, testing the graduates without their knowledge to see who could handle real pressure. But here is what you did not realize, Maya said, her voice growing stronger. We were testing you too. She pulled out a data crystal from her pocket and held it up. Every human in this graduating class has been coordinating for 3 years. We were not competing with each other. We were gathering intelligence. Sophie Lang documented cultural practices. Jake Morrison mapped social networks. Ryan Cooper analyzed technology integration. Amy Chen studied psychological responses. And I remained silent, listening to everything you said when you thought humans were not paying attention. Sophie and Jake stood up in the human section, confirming her words. The other human graduates did the same. They had all been part of this plan. This crystal contains comprehensive profiles on every major species in the Coalition. Your tactical preferences, your cultural blind spots, your hidden fears, your unspoken strengths, everything we would need to know to fight beside you or against you. The implications were staggering. The humans had been running their own intelligence operation inside the Academy for 3 years. Vexthor's forearms tensed. You dare to spy on the Coalition? No, Maya said firmly. We dared to learn about our allies, because you kept us in the dark about the real threat. You tested us to see how we would perform under pressure. Smart. But we kept ourselves silent to see how you would treat us without understanding us. We needed to know if you truly saw us as equals or just as probationary members who had not yet proved their worth. She looked around the amphitheater at thousands of alien faces. Every species here earned their place in the coalition through strength or technology or ancient treaties. Humans have none of those advantages, so we used what we do have, the ability to understand others, the patience to watch and learn, the humility to stay quiet until we had something worth saying. Maya held up the data crystal again. The Devourers arrive in 8 months. The Academy trained us individually, preparing each species to fight according to their nature. But humans learned long ago, in our bloodiest wars, that survival means making family from strangers. It means building unity from diversity. She walked to the edge of the stage and extended her hand toward the audience, specifically toward Zektal, her teammate from the Crucible, who now sat in the front row of Krethian graduates. "Ready for the real test?" she asked, her voice carrying across the silent amphitheater. "Not as separate species playing alliance bound by treaties and political agreements, but as one people who choose to stand together because we have learned to understand each other, to respect each other, to fight for each other." Zektal stood slowly. The proud Krethian warrior walked to the stage. He looked at Maya's extended hand, then at her face. He saw the human who had taught him that honor could exist without words, that strength came from unity, that wisdom sometimes meant listening instead of speaking. He took her hand. "For 3 years, you taught me to see beyond tradition. Yes, Silent One. I am ready." The amphitheater exploded with sound. Some aliens cheered. Others argued. The instructors huddled in urgent discussion. But in that moment, something fundamental shifted. A human and a Krethian standing together by choice rather than obligation. Maya looked at Headmaster Vexthor one last time. "We passed your test. The question is, did you pass ours?" Vexthor stood frozen for a long moment. Then, slowly, he began to laugh, a deep, rumbling sound that shocked everyone who knew the stern headmaster. He walked to Maya and placed one of his 4 hands on her shoulder. "You are correct, Cadet Brooks. We tested you, and you have shown us that humans bring something the Coalition desperately needs, not just warriors, but unifiers, not just fighters, but those who build bridges between species." He raised his voice to address everyone. "The Devourers come. And when they arrive, they will find not a collection of separate species, but a galaxy that has learned to speak as one." Maya finally smiled, the weight of 3 years of silence lifting from her shoulders. She had spoken at last, and her words would change everything. The days following graduation changed everything at the Academy. Maya's revelation about the Devourers could not be hidden any longer. The Coalition leadership had no choice but to confirm the truth. An unknown enemy was approaching from dark space beyond the galaxy. They had destroyed 3 exploration outposts already. They were called Devourers because they consumed everything in their path, leaving nothing but empty worlds behind. The news spread across the Coalition like wildfire. Some planets panicked. Others prepared for war. But at the Academy, something different was happening. The graduates were not scattering to their homeworlds. They were staying, they were organizing, and they were doing it in a way the galaxy had never seen before. Maya sat in a conference room with Headmaster Vexthor and the senior staff. Commander Lisa Hayes was there too, along with representatives from the Coalition Military Command. On the table between them lay Maya's data crystal, its contents now displayed on holographic screens around the room. "This is remarkable," said Admiral Crone, a high-ranking Vexel officer. "Your analysis of cross-species tactical integration is more comprehensive than anything our strategists have produced in 20 years." Maya nodded. Because your strategists are single-species experts trying to understand others. We are humans who learn to see through alien eyes. It is different. Vexthor leaned forward, his forearms resting on the table. 3 years ago, I did not believe humans belonged in the academy. I thought you were too weak, too emotional, too fragile. I was wrong. The question now is what we do with this knowledge you have gathered. We use it, Maya said simply. The Devourers will not fight like the Coalition fights. They will not honor treaties or respect boundaries. They will consume and move on. To defeat them, we need to think differently. We need to combine our strengths in ways we never have before. Commander Hayes spoke up. Maya is right. I have been training humans here for 10 years, and I have watched them struggle in a system designed for other species. But I have also watched them adapt. Humans learn faster than any species I have ever seen, not because we are smarter, but because we evolved on a world that forced us to constantly change or die. Sophie Lang entered the room, followed by Jake Morrison and Ryan Cooper. Maya had asked them to come. They carried additional data files, more research compiled over 3 years of careful observation. "Show them," Maya said. Sophie activated a presentation. We identified 47 distinct tactical patterns across all major coalition species. Each species fights according to their nature. Krethians favor direct assault. Vexal prefer calculated strikes. Quillith use swarm tactics. But the Devourers do not fit any known pattern. They adapt to whatever they face. Jake continued. Which means we need forces that can adapt faster than they can. Mixed species units that combine different thinking styles. Human creativity with Krethian strength. Vexal logic with Quillith coordination. Species working together not because of political treaties, but because they genuinely understand each other. Ryan pulled up tactical simulations. We already proved this works in the Crucible. Team 7 succeeded because we learned to think as one unit with 5 different perspectives. Imagine entire battalions operating that way. Admiral Crone studied the simulations carefully. The logistics would be complicated. Different species have different environmental needs, different communication styles, different command structures. Yes, Maya agreed, but the Devourers will be more complicated. We can adapt to logistics. The question is whether the coalition leadership has the courage to try something new. The room fell silent. What Maya was proposing went against centuries of military tradition. Each species had always maintained separate forces, coordinated through central command, but fundamentally independent. Mixing them at the unit level was radical. Vexthor stood and walked to the window, looking out at the academy grounds below. For 3 years, I watched you, Maya Brooks. I thought your silence was weakness or pride. I did not understand that you were learning to see us more clearly than we see ourselves. You have earned the right to be heard. He turned back to face the room. I support this proposal. We form experimental integrated units using the graduates who are willing. We test this theory, and if it works, we expand it across the coalition military. Admiral Crone nodded slowly. I will take this to the High Council, but I suspect they will approve. When an extinction-level threat approaches, pride becomes a luxury we cannot afford. Over the next 3 months, everything moved quickly. The graduates formed new units based on mutual respect rather than species loyalty. Zektal and Maya became the first co-commanders of an integrated strike force. Their team included Vexal analysts, Quillith scouts, Krethian warriors, and human strategists. Amy Chen led a diplomatic unit that focused on helping other teams learn cross-species communication. She used the techniques Maya had developed during her 3 years of silence. Teaching aliens to read human body language, teaching humans to understand Krethian honor codes, building bridges through understanding rather than translation. The academy itself changed. New training programs were developed that focused on integrated tactics. Instructors from different species taught together instead of separately. The dropout rate for humans fell from 78% to 30% because the system finally adapted to accommodate different strengths rather than demanding everyone be the same. Commander Hayes was promoted to Director of Integrated Training. She made sure that future cadets would not have to struggle the way early humans had struggled, but she also made sure they understood Maya's lesson. Sometimes strength comes not from speaking loudly, but from listening carefully. 6 months after graduation, the Devourers entered Coalition space. Their ships were massive, organic-looking things that seemed to grow rather than being built. They moved through solar systems like locusts, stripping planets of all resources and leaving dead rocks behind. The first battle was a disaster. Traditional Coalition forces attacked using standard tactics. The Devourers adapted within hours and destroyed 3 entire fleets. Thousands died. Panic spread across the galaxy. Then the integrated units deployed. Maya's strike force hit a Devourer ship using tactics that made no sense according to traditional military doctrine. They combined Krethian frontal assault with human deception, Vexel calculations with Quillith swarm coordination. The Devourers tried to adapt, but could not predict what would come next because the attacking force itself was unpredictable. The ship was destroyed. It was the first victory against the Devourers, and it proved that Maya's vision worked. More integrated units formed. More victories followed. The war was far from over, but the tide had shifted. The Devourers had expected to fight separate species with predictable patterns. Instead, they faced a unified force that thought in ways they could not anticipate. Maya stood on the bridge of the Coalition flagship, looking at the tactical displays. Beside her stood Zektal, Amy, Ryan, Sophie, and Jake. Her team, her family, chosen not by blood or species, but by shared purpose. "Another wave approaching," Zektal reported. 20 Devourer ships. Maya smiled. "Then they are about to learn the most important lesson. They thought they could devour us one species at a time. They did not understand that we have become something new, not humans or Krethians or Vexal or Quillith. We have become one people who chose to stand together." She opened the communication channel to all Allied ships. "All units, execute Integration Protocol 7. Show them what happens when you threaten a galaxy that learned to speak as one." The battle began. Ships from 100 worlds moved in perfect coordination. Different species, different technologies, different ways of thinking, all united by something the Devourers could never understand. The choice to protect each other. The willingness to fight for those who were different but no longer strangers. Maya watched the battle unfold and thought back to the day she decided to stay silent. 3 years of saying nothing so she could learn everything. 3 years of listening so she could finally speak words that mattered. 3 years of patience that had changed the galaxy forever. The Devourers were powerful, but they had made one critical mistake. They had given the Coalition a common enemy, and in facing that enemy, the Coalition had finally become what it always claimed to be. Not a political alliance of convenient partners, but a true union of peoples who had learned to see each other as family. Let the Devourers come. Let them bring their ships and their hunger and their endless consumption. They would learn what every conqueror in human history had learned, that the most dangerous enemy is not the one with the biggest weapons. It is the one who refuses to fight alone. Maya Brooks had asked a question at graduation. Ready for the real test? The galaxy had answered with courage, unity, and hope. And now, together, they would face whatever came from the darkness beyond the stars. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. Sonnet 4.5.